Hey, so I just came back from the Chikara Fan Conclave, which is a typical thing they do at King of Trios weekends. They didn't announce this one until very late, and when they did, they announced that only 200 fans would get in, and they didn't really announce much ahead of time, apart from there was going to be a talent show, there would be a trivia contest, and various other things. So not every fan that wanted to go necessarily got in, but it was smaller. They at these things they have merch tables set up, and a lot of the wrestlers, including ones that weren't there on night one, were in attendance, like Rockstar Spud, Tigre Uno, the Great Sonata. They had Trent Beretta was there, and a few other people. Um, Matthew of Botchamania was actually there. He was hosting a video game tournament featuring WWF No Mercy on the Nintendo 64, widely considered to still be one of the best pro wrestling games ever created. And they had various other activities and contests for people to do. They had board games and card games set up at some tables you could play. Other fans, some of the wrestlers got involved in those as well. And then there were the other activities. But you had to sign up for those. And unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to sign up for any of them because it had filled up before I got the chance. They had a Dasher Hatfield Dizzy Bat Challenge, and that's the typical one that you see at, like, kids sporting events and stuff. You take a baseball bat, plunk it on the ground, put your forehead to the end of the bat, and then run in circles around the bat. At some sporting events, you have to then like tee off and then try to run the bases. But in this case, since it was indoors, they didn't want anybody to get hit by any flying objects. They had to then run a distance and slap a high five with Dasher Hatfield. The first guy actually did a pretty decent job. He uh, managed to keep himself from going off course and crashing into things by, when he started running, putting his hand in front of his face like that, and it seemed to work. There were quite a few people that started tripping and falling and stumbling over themselves. Flex Rumble Crunch from the Devastation Corporation got involved later in the competition, and he started falling all over. He didn't do the full 10 rotations. He did only like 5, and then started running, crashed into a couple things, and then he got elbowed in the face by Dasher, who told him, "Sorry, I got to disqualify you. Never crossed the red line." Later, Mr. Touchdown got involved, and he, instead of doing the official course, you know, turned turned left and ran straight out into the hall and then disappeared. The fan got a Steve the Turtle Whiner T-shirt. Steve the Turtle being a wrestler and basically super fan that comes to all these events and sometimes does commentary. Another competition that they had was the trivia contest. In this case, there wasn't any sign-ups. It was hosted by Sidney Bacabella. He just picked 4 people at random. Well, 3 people at random, and then the fourth guy, he basically just said, because he was so sure that nobody was going to be able to would know the answer to these, it didn't matter. And they were, pretty obscure wrestling trivia from the 80s or previous, as befits Bacabella's character. It was They were some pretty challenging stuff, like who was the person that shaved King Kong Bundy's head? Fritz von Erich. What was the name of the venue that Glow ran in? The Golden Nugget in Las Vegas. There were some other questions. I don't remember them off the top of my head. The winner got a Devastation Corporation prize pack, a Devastation Corporation T-shirt, a button, and one of those 8x10s like I showed you yesterday. And then they had basically Family Feud. They just called it The Feud because, of course, it's Family Feud is copyrighted. They had 2 teams. One team consistent, being co-captained by the Colony. One team being co-captained by 3PEC-O, and then they picked 3 fans at random for each team. And it was typical Family Feud sort of questions. And the Colony team ended up winning very handily, especially in the fast money round. And the winners all got stickers and I think like $2. And I think like $2 each. So not all that much to go around. but then of course there wouldn't be. And they had a photo booth set up where you could take pictures with some of the wrestlers and do various poses. Even they even had little costume doodads that you could put on. And they also had, this was again a sign up thing for a talent show. I didn't take part in that because, well, I'm a fat schlub from the internet. I have no talent. So, but they had some pretty good stuff in there. They had one guy. They had some people singing. The first guy didn't really do all that well. This girl that got up later and did some singing blew everyone away with her rendition of the song "Let It Go" from Frozen. They had a woman named Kristen who ended up winning, playing basically like a flute. They called it a magic whistle, and she did a pretty good job playing that. There was a guy that got up and told some jokes that weren't all that good, although he even seemed to realize he wasn't doing that well. And the judges for the talent show competition were Icarus, Smooth Sailing Ashley Remington, and Trent Beretta and Chuck Taylor, the best friends. Whom, if Chuck Taylor gets eliminated from the Raid of Voladores later, will probably be in the tag gauntlet on Saturday. And after the talent show, that was it. I did buy some more merch. Took part with the photo booth thing. For $1, you got 2 strips of 3 photos. The fourth one being basically just the King of Trios logo. And I did it with the Assyrian Portal. They also had the throwbacks, did it at one point. They had the Colony doing it, and the Best Friends as well. I don't remember who else might have taken part, but I was busy watching other stuff at the time. And so these are the photos that I ended up taking. Obviously, we were having some fun with it. You can see right there. Ophidian made it look like I was choking him. The typical, fists up pose, and then another typical badass arm fold pose. As I said, $1 for 2 of those, so it wasn't that bad. And they had a guy there named Eric Corvus. Now Corvus has been involved in the was involved in the Wrestling Is companies last year. Presumably he is still getting some work with some other indie companies. I think Chikara will be a good fit for him. He has a steampunk kind of aesthetic to him, a lot of gears and that sort of style of attire. Top hat with goggles and all sorts of other accoutrements. And he sells a lot of merchandise, a lot of it being steampunk related stuff. He had top hats, he had ring worn lambskin vest, he had goggles, he had all sorts of other little doodads, none of which really interested me all that much. But he also had these leather bound journals, leather bound, with the leather thong sort of keeping it intact. Comes with a little key thing, even though there's no real lock on it, and another little, I guess that's supposed to be like a bookmark kind of thing, although I suppose the key could function as a bookmark as well, given the length of its cord. And it has some words laid in here saying, "You have memories across the traces of the heart. You leave the scene." A little doodad right there. It's just blank inside with gold edged paper. This doodad has writing on it. Looks like it's French. I plugged it into Google Translate, and unfortunately, it didn't come up with anything. So, anyway, later I'll be adding more to this video, giving you a recap of Night 2. That is, if you're not following my Twitter, where I'll be giving live results as they happen, or doing my best to do so. I will see you in a little bit later after the show. Well, that was certainly a thing. I'm still a little bit in shock from the main event of Night 2 and the carnage that happened afterwards. I'll be getting to that soon. First, though, let's talk about merch. I did go and buy some more merch while I was at Night 2. The people that were selling the Pro Wrestling Guerrilla DVDs turned out to actually be from highspots.com, who are the people who sell Pro Wrestling Guerrilla DVDs. And they were also selling some other merchandise, including Lucha Libre masks. And while I was going to buy a Lucha Libre mask, which I'll show you in a minute, I noticed they had a couple of DVDs that the previews of which were the ones that prompted me to get back in to start trying to follow Pro Wrestling Guerrilla a little bit more. That was All-Star Weekend 9, Nights 1 and 2. Night 1 has a match between AR Fox and Samurai del Sol, whom you might now know as Kalisto on NXT, against the Inner City Machine Guns, Ricochet and Rich Swann. And the highlights of that match just completely blew my mind. And this also has a guerrilla warfare match uh, between Sami Callihan and Drake Younger. And then night 2 has some excellent matches as well, including the main event, Adam Cole, the champion, defending against Drake Younger. And the other thing that I bought was a Lucha mask. I don't know who it is exactly, but it looks pretty cool, so I decided to buy it. I kind of laced it a little bit too tight, so I haven't been able to get a good fit yet, but looks pretty freaking scary, I think. So there's that. More merch for me. Now let's get into, I bought those at intermission. Now let's get into the show itself. They kicked off the show with the first Rey de Voladores eliminator match between Chuck Taylor, Rich Swann, Shinron, and Tigre Uno. Chuck Taylor was really the only one who kind of worked heel in the match. He started out the match by hiding in the fifth row, didn't want to get involved, and he ended up being the first one eliminated after eating a 5-star Swan Splash from Rich Swann. But then Swann ended up being the next one eliminated when Tigre Uno put him in a submission hold that I didn't quite recognize, and he tapped out. That left Tigre and Shinron, I don't know if somebody's explained the laws of physics to him properly, because he pulled off some moves that I have just never seen before. It just blew my mind. He ended up pinning Tigre after hitting a backflip cutter. Grabbed him in a hold, did a backflip, spinning Tigre around and giving him the cutter, and then hit a second rope 630 senton. And 630 senton, you need to be able to get enough height to do the full rotations for that. So that he pulled that off is just mind blowing. So Shinron advances to the finals of the Rey de Voladores tournament. Tigre Uno got some please come back chance, so he may get some more bookings when TNA goes under. Then we had a King of Trios quarterfinals match as 3PEC-O took on the Gekido. Now the Gekido, as I said yesterday, there's dissension in the ranks. 17 in the Shard clearly don't think Jigsaw is ruthless enough for their liking, especially when it comes to his brother. But they didn't really trust him to do much in this match either. Now Jigsaw still did work heel, and he still, he was still yelling at people that he's better than this, he deserves better than this, but he was still getting bossed around by the Gekido, and he ended up tapping to Shane Matthews' Boston Crab to give 3PEC-O the victory. And after the match, the Gekido started to leave without Jigsaw, and when they stopped and told him to follow them, Jigsaw, basically waved them off and turned his back on them. And when the Shard got into the ring to confront him about that, Jigsaw kicked him in the head. And the Gekido left without Jigsaw. And then Mike Quackenbush turned up. He was watching all this with a bit of a frown on his face. He got on the mic and basically gave a heartfelt plea to Jigsaw to, basically telling him, Chikara is your family, Jigsaw. Chikara needs you. And it looked like Jigsaw might have gone to embrace Quack, but instead he walked past him, walked out the door, and yelled, I don't need anybody. So there's still going to be something coming out of that. Maybe he knows something about Deucalion that will come in handy. Who knows? Then we had the Battle of the Bow Ties. Juan Francisco de Coronado versus Rockstar Spud. Now, Coronado came out being played out by Kristen, the woman who won the Fan Conclave with her magic whistle flute, and she played Francisco out, and Francisco seemed appreciative, and then he grabbed the flute from her and broke it. So, which basically cemented him as the heel in this match. And he went through his usual protracted entrance from there. there was some comedy antics in the beginning as they were both posturing with their bow ties, and even then Spud was, turned around, was like, "All right, that's it. That's a battle of bow ties. I'm gone." Until he's told that there's a match involved, and he admitted he didn't realize there was a match, which prompted the fans to chant, "Read your contract" at him. But the match proceeded, and then Spud noticed that there was only one person in the match who didn't have a bow tie, that being Bryce Remsburg, the referee. So he pulled another bow tie out of his tights, put it on Bryce, who was, genuinely touched by that. And then Coronado took the bow tie away and stomped on it just to further cement his status as a Rudo. They went back and forth for a while, and right when Spud looked like he might be able to pull off the win, he got crotched on the top rope, and then Coronado hit him with a deadlift German suplex for the win. So Juan Francisco de Coronado still wins, and Rockstar Spud got a thank you Spud and a please come back chant. So hey, good for him. Then before the next match, we had the Greenhorn Militia come out again, and Kid Cyclone said that they don't like bullies and they said bullies are cowards. And he ended up challenging Deucalion he said, "You're going to give you one last chance to prove you're not a coward." Called him out, and Deucalion didn't show. And Kid Cyclone swore that they would take a page out of Deucalion's book and attack him when he least expected it and leave him crippled. Then we had another quarterfinal match for the King of Trios tournament, Devastation Corporation taking on Team UK. Now, Team UK fought hard, and there were a few points when it looked like they might actually be able to pull out the win, but Devastation Corporation are just too big and too strong and too mean to go down that easily. Blaster McMassive, he is one of the more entertaining one of the guys, those three in the ring. At one point, he yelled out "Cheerio" and hit a couple of the Team UK with a double clothesline. Mark Andrews ended up eating the pinfall. He got hit with the death blow, and the Devastation Corporation goes to the semifinals tomorrow. And then we had an intermission, as I said. Bought some more merch. Then we kicked off the second half of the show with the other Rey de Voladores Eliminator, as we had AR Fox, Kid Hybrid, Sonata, and Amasis going at it. Kid Hybrid worked a little bit heel, but Sonata was far and away the heel in the match. He's a student of the great Muda, and so there's a lot of that sort of offensive pattern there, as well as his look. He has his face all painted up, and he does a little mist spit at the start of them during his entrance. Kid Hybrid ended up being the first one eliminated. Amasis was hung in the Tree of Woe in one corner. Hybrid went to the other corner, and the adjacent corner, and did a coast-to-coast headbutt to Amasis. That knocked Hybrid loopy enough for Sonata to roll him up and put his feet on the ropes to pick up the pinfall. Next, AR Fox got eliminated. He's another guy that can pull off some amazing high-flying antics. One of his signature spots is a springboard imploding 450 to the outside of the ring. Now, a regular 450 is when you're facing your opponent and doing the flip forward. An imploding one is when you're springing backward and having to do the flip, which is a lot more dangerous because you can smack your face and head and neck off of the turnbuckle or the ropes. It's a much more dangerous move, and he made it look easy. But AR Fox got eliminated by Amasis after he hit a 450 splash. It just sent spittle and snot flying. It was kind of disgusting. But that left Sonata and Amasis going at it. And Sonata ended up spraying mist in Amasis's face and hit a super kick to pick up the pinfall. So your Rey de Voladores finals tomorrow will be Shinron and the Great Sonata. Then we had another quarterfinals match as the Golden Trio took on the Spirit Squad. Spirit Squad came out first, and they were doing some of the same antics during their entrance from yesterday, and then they turned heel, saying that Pennsylvania, the people in Pennsylvania and in Chikara, they don't have any spirit, and completely turned heel. They ripped up their pom-poms, they ripped up the broke their megaphone. They tore up all the streamers that got thrown in the ring, and they refused to do any more cheers. And there was a lot of comedy going on in the early going of the match. But the Golden Trio ended up picking up the win. Throwbacks hit Kenny with a 3D, and then Icarus locked him in the Chikara special for the tap out win. So Golden Trio goes to the semis tomorrow. And we had another singles match as Smooth Sailing Ashley Remington took on the former Yoshitatsu, announced as Yamamoto, because of course he can't. He's got to avoid those copyright claims. There was some more comedy antics going on here as they each evaded each other's offense and dives to the outside and stuff. Remington was completely aghast that Yamamoto wouldn't break a hold at one, that he held it on to the count of four. But in the home stretch, Juan Francisco de Coronado, who has had some issues with Remington recently, runs out, drags Remington out, and throws him into the ring post to draw the DQ. And Yamamoto ended up kicking him in the head for it. After the match, Yamamoto and Remington both shook hands, and Remington gave him a fruit basket like he's been doing to all of his opponents. And that brings us to the main event. The Colony versus the Flood Elite for the King of Trios quarterfinals. The Flood came out with Snow Troll chained up again, and they targeted Worker Ant's knee because Worker Ant's knee had taken a pretty major injury the night before with the snowboard and everything, and they kept going after it. But he and the Colony just would not go down. And the Snow Troll at one point grabbed Jimmy Jacobs' leg to stop him from attacking one of the Colony, and he got beat for it. But Worker finally managed to rally back, hits Jacobs with the rolling GTS, but before he can go for the pinfall, Snow Troll goes into the ring and begs him to unchain him. So Worker manages to do so, but then Snow Troll is busy hugging his leg, and he and the ref are busy trying to get him out of the ring, which is when Deucalion turned up with Soldier Ant. Exactly like I predicted. And Soldier Ant got in the ring and attacked the Colony. That left them open enough for Jacobs to capitalize, hit a finisher, and pick up the win. So the Flood has now advanced to the semifinals. And after the match, the Colony, hobbled to the back. Soldier Ant completely disappeared. I didn't see what happened to him. But Deucalion was still standing on the stage. And Jacobs, Volgar, and Kingston, turned around and saw him. Deucalion steps into the ring, and Volgar kneels down before him, and Jacobs kneels down before him. And just as Kingston is about to do the same, Greenhorn Militia comes running out from the back. The crowd, of course, goes crazy, and they dogpile on Deucalion. The Batiri, Hollowicked, and I think 3.0, they ran out to attack the Flood. They ended up getting taken out on the outside. I didn't see what happened to them because I was busy looking in the ring at Deucalion and the Greenhorn Militia, who had, again, dogpiled on him. And Deucalion just stands up, throws off Equinox, throws off Creator Wrestler, and grabs Kid Cyclone and snapmares him over his shoulder. And Kid Cyclone takes the mask off. But I don't know who Deucalion is. I don't think anybody really knows who he is. He's a bald guy, a bit of it with a beard, and he has all black eyes. And he stood up, stared down Kid Cyclone, who looked like he'd seen a ghost. And Deucalion screamed at him, "Coward!" And the Flood grabbed Creator Wrestler and Kid Cyclone and held them in place. Equinox tried to attack Deucalion and got goozled, and then Deucalion hit him with the chokeslam backbreaker and killed him, basically, or took him out, whatever terminology you care to use. And then the Flood picked up Creator Wrestler, fed him to Deucalion, who gave him another choke record. This one was a lot nastier looking. I mean, it looked like Creator Wrestler came down practically on the back of his head. It was very nasty. And then, as they were getting ready to do the same to Kid Cyclone, he slips out of his hooded cape, gets out of the ring, and then runs away. basically proving who the coward is in a way. And then the the flood, you know, left. You know, they basically made their point. Deucalion is not somebody to be taken lightly. And Hallowicked got back up and just looked at his students falling in the ring, and they were. It was just there. That was the end of the show. The house lights slowly came up, and they carefully rolled Equinox and Creator Wrestler to the side and carried them to the back, and that was it. That was the end of the show. So tomorrow night we're going to have the King of Trios semifinals and finals. We're going to have the Raid of Voladores finals with Shinron and Sonata, the tag team gauntlet. Only 4 teams of which have been announced so far: the Batiri, Hype Rockwell and Race Jackson, NRG, the Wrecking Crews, Oleg the Usurper and Jaka, and Los Ice Creams. There'll be more teams than that, but those are the only 4 that have been announced ahead of time. The Submission Squad have an open Atomico's Challenge, a 4-on-4 match. We don't know who their opponents will be yet. And one more non-tournament match. I had thought it was going to be Kid Cyclone versus Deucalion, but after what happened tonight, I don't think we're going to be seeing that. So time will tell. If I had to predict what we're going to see in the King of Trios matches tomorrow, I think we're going to get Devastation Corporation versus the Golden Trio, and 3-Pec-O versus the Flood Elite. And that will transition to the Golden Trio versus the Flood Elite in the finals. And it could go either way there, but I think the Flood Elite are going to be the ones who are going to win that match. So that's all from me tonight. Hopefully my voice will still won't have completely left me by the end of the show tomorrow. But that's it from me. I will see you tomorrow.